evening. I'm Supervisor Seeley. Before we get started, given this a public meeting, just want to ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, everyone. It's a very nice turnout. Normally when this room's full, it means I've done something wrong, so I hope that isn't the case. But I'm glad there's a lot of people here because I want, anytime we do an initiative like this, I want people to feel like they can ask us questions, that we're transparent and open. And that's really the intent of this because it's a very intriguing initiative, one that we're interested in, mainly based on a lot of feedback from residents over the past few years, and one that we wanted to provide the opportunity to at least allow people to explore on their own. Before I get started, I just want to introduce some folks that are here with us from the town. We have Councilwoman Patrina Freeman. Give her a round of applause. Yep. We have our Deputy Supervisor John Perticone. And when she's in here, she's always a town official. We have former Councilwoman Lori Barnum, so she's here as well. And then as part of our when we get to Q&A, and I'll go through kind of the outline of the night, but when we do Q&A, we have Councilwoman Kimmy Romeo. Give her a round. I'll make you clap for our attorney, too. We have from our town attorney, we have Andrew Dean, who's been working with us on this. And Bob Kiley, our Commissioner of Public Works. And also, she always deserves a round of applause because she's the one running around before meetings like this, helping residents. Our Director of Administration, Maria Vecchio, who helped put this together. So we're going to have a PowerPoint presentation that'll run through, and hopefully a lot of you got the handout. It really runs through a lot of those things, but also we're broadcasting this live, so for people who aren't here, they can watch along. We'll make the PowerPoint available, and we do have a web page set up on our website, irondequoit.org. You know, when I say we're having a meeting on refuse districts, and it's an exciting initiative, I don't know what people think. There's not that much exciting about garbage collection, but you know, somebody pointed out to me that it really is an essential part of our life, whether we want to or not. It's one thing that most of us probably can't live without. And in that regard, we want to make sure, A, it's being done in a quality manner, and B, we always are mindful of cost, and C, if there's a way to empower citizens to make their own decisions and perhaps choose their own path as required by state law, we want to be able to give them that opportunity. So I'm going to go through this presentation, probably take about 20 minutes. I'm going to ask, we'll do Q&A afterwards. We will be here as long as you need us to be. We have a panel up here that really can answer any broad array of questions. If we can't answer a question tonight, we will get you an answer as soon as possible. And our goal here tonight is to be forthcoming, informative, transparent, and really give you an idea of why the town is we're not advancing this because any town can do this, any resident can do this that they want to. This is not something that the town is really electing to do. It's something that we're just promoting because we've heard from a lot of residents over the years who are interested in this concept. So the goals of this initiative, and we're calling it an initiative because we really are making a concerted effort to empower people and give them the opportunity to pursue this if they want. But it's allowing citizens to take over something that's part of their daily lives. It looks to realize savings on the amount residents pay for garbage collection. And as kind of a practical effect, it looks to reduce heavy truck traffic in Irondequoit streets. And in addition to that, there's also possibilities within a concept like this that would allow for new services in addition to garbage collection, some things that I'll get into shortly. So the question is, why now? Well, that's a poorly cued graphic, but so I know there's a lot of interest in garbage collection because A, people communicate with me, and they've brought this up over the years, whether it's our neighborhood associations, as I'm going door to door, people just asking about the concept. Why aren't we doing this in Irondequoit? And for the longest time, I thought the town really had to elect to allow residents to do this, really to start the process. And then we looked into it further, and it's really something that state law allows any resident to do. They have to work with their town, but any resident, if they want, or any neighborhood could really trigger this process. If you go on the Irondequoit or many social media pages, like I of course highlighted the Irondequoit page that's so popular, they take polls about garbage collection. You can search in the Facebook page, and I just searched the word garbage, and there were a number of posts. So certainly it's something people like talking about. They like relating their experiences with one another. They like talking about issues they're having, or perhaps opportunities that they're having with other haulers. The other really reason is we had about several waste haulers a couple of years ago, and you've seen really a consolidation into just really three now. Casella's bought up a few. Waste Management certainly is large. You have SAREC, who's operating. Really, we're down to three, and that recent consolidation of waste haulers means less competition in the market. That can be good or bad. I mean, there's market dynamics at play, but the bottom line is there's less options for residents. So what is a refuse district? And I'll just go back to one point. I know that one thing as I've talked with residents is there's varying cost of even if with the same waste hauler, there's a varying cost. Sometimes you could live around the corner for someone, have the same hauler, and you could be paying a variable rate than them. And there's a lot of things that go into that. Obviously, it's a logistical matter for the waste hauler, but the consistency and the lack of consistency sometimes seems to frustrate people. And me personally, I've seen my own waste hauler. It's forced me to really look at do I want to make a change. My waste hauler, I think it went up about $20 a quarter recently. I got my newest bill, and I saw there was about an $18 to $20 increase, and I first thing I looked to make sure I hadn't had a late payment. I didn't, because I do automatic payment, but it was startling, and that didn't prompt me to do it, but I can imagine perhaps other residents found the same sticker value. So to the point where I'm probably paying, I think, about close to $450, $500 a year now in waste hauling. I live with my wife. We don't consume that much garbage. So, and I'm sure people have varying degrees of experiences, but perhaps warning them to look for an alternative. So a refuse district is a designated area and neighborhood which is single refuse collector. Now, refuse collector is the way in town code we call a waste hauler or a garbage company services all the households. It's a district. It can be of any size. It can be the whole town, which, by the way, we're not looking to do. It can be large, small, but it's within that whole district. All the residents, the homeowners in that district, have the same waste hauler. Once a district is established, and we'll go through the process of how that happens because it's nuanced, it's prescribed by state law. The town secures bids for that district and negotiates contracts they believe to be in the best interest of residents. And they are allowed flexibility in what types of terms they can negotiate too, what types of add-ons they can negotiate. The cost, this is the thing though, and this is what catches everyone's eye. The cost of the services are added to the tax bill. However, you're no longer paying a bill to your waste hauler. So your taxes undoubtedly go up even if you're paying $2 for waste collection. The difference is you're not paying a waste hauler. And normally, as we've seen, as we've looked at other communities, some neighboring communities, normally that's a win situation because the increase in taxes is offset by a larger decrease in what you're paying for waste haulers. Now, the potential advantages are there is a high likelihood for lower costs. We never guarantee anything, but looking at comparable towns, and I'll get into one case study in a neighboring community that started this last year, there is a high likelihood for lower costs. There is a pretty good track record. That's through competitive bidding, and a lot of that, you know why? It's because it's the density, right? It's the efficiencies that the waste hauler can realize. They want to be able to go to every house. They don't like having to skip over every 4 houses. It makes it more efficient for them. It's lower administrative costs for the company. They just send one bill now. It's to the town because the town is the one doing the administrative function. They don't have to chase down delinquent payments because, again, it's on the tax bill. The rates are set for the year. They're a fixed rate. You're not going to see any of that variability. It's very transparent. It's something that the town has negotiated, and you know what it is and what it will be all 12 months of the year. And the towns can negotiate favorable contract renewal options. We'll get into some of those. But really, there's a whole salad bar of things that you can affix as an add-on option, and it's really some opportunities. So those are some of the cost advantages. Now, pocketbook issues are one thing, but the bottom line is, at any given day, I live in the Laurelton neighborhood. Any given week, we have 3 different waste haulers going through town. As compared, and they're traveling probably traveling the same amount of distance, unless they've found some way to defy physics and can skip over between houses. But having just one waste hauler in a neighborhood is going to result in less carbon emissions and less noise pollution. And we have Commissioner Kiley here because he knows one of the worst things for our roads is obviously heavy truck traffic. We can't not have a DPW, but certainly having reduced truck traffic on our roads has its advantages, and that's also good for the taxpayer. And I'll just say this, consumer protection, you now have a town to advocate, and we already do advocate with our waste haulers, I will say. Remember, waste haulers have to be licensed with the town, so if there are issues, if you have issues with your waste hauler, you can always come to the town, and we're happy to reach out to them and use our bully pulpit to communicate with them. But in this case, you have the consumer protection of the town lobbying for you, the town making sure that if we do have a contract, that the waste hauler is living up to the terms of that contract. Now, there are disadvantages. Again, we're being transparent here. We're going to weigh the costs and benefits because ultimately, I think we want to allow you to decide if this is something you'd like to pursue in your neighborhood. Experience with places is, again, it's that there has been a reduction in cost, but that's not a guarantee. So you're forming a district, and you're allowing the town to go out to bid. Now, that might not automatically result in a lower cost. Now, the town can choose whether or not it wants to accept the bid, and hopefully your town board will act in the best interest of of its residents and get that lower cost, but there is no guarantee. To cover the cost of administrating refuse districts, the town may include a district charge of up to 5% of contract price. Now, some may say that's just going to be a grab, right? But there is a valid reason for that if you think about it. Let's say that 10% of the town are in refuse districts. You could make the case then, should the 90% of the people who aren't in refuse districts have to pay for the administrative costs of that. Now, we're confident, and I talked to other neighboring towns, there is no need. This isn't going to be like a new position created. And I think if we look at those administrative fees, we're basically just going to take what we need in that regard regarding paperwork. We do this with our consolidated sewer district as well. The property owner cannot choose a collector. So that's probably one of the, I guess, biggest concerns with this is. So if you live in that district, you have to have that waste hauler. And I'll get into more of the process of how the hauler is formed, but that district is formed, and everyone thus has to go with the contractor that is bid through the town. And that's the lowest responsible bidder. Responsible bidder being key too. It's not just the lowest bidder, it has to be the lowest responsible bidder. So that's one caveat you look at too. And that's why, as I'll get into, it's not just submitting to the town and we form the district. There is a lengthy process that allows for citizen participation and discourse on proposed districts. Some additional services, such as doorside pickup, leaf collection, not covered in the town's contract with the refuse collector, must be negotiated between the property owner and the refuse collector. That could be an additional fee. Now, I will say this. There are additional add-ons you can have, and I think that comes with your waste hauler as well. You can add on and pay for additional supplemental things that would be akin to this as well. Now, that can be negotiated if the town chooses to into the contract, but again, if it's not in there, those are things that you would have to procure on your own. Property owners would have to pay for refuse collection for the entire year. That's another caveat of this. So we have snowbirds, perhaps, who are gone a few months of the year, who might cancel their refuse collection. You might have people who get it every other week, and that's understandable. So again, that's the thing. It's everyone's paying that same rate on your taxes. If you're only in town 10 months of the year, or if you only want garbage collection every other week, it doesn't matter. Under state law, everyone has to pay that same amount. All property owners in the district must participate again once it's established. You cannot opt out of the refuse district. I'm going to give a brief case study because I want to understand, because this is really, and I'll give actually the town of Pittsford a lot of credit. I normally don't give the east side a lot of credit, but I will. Pittsford kind of was in the same boat last year. I think they were having meetings like this in February, and they embarked on an initiative similar to this. They worked with neighborhoods and had 5 proposed refuse districts from a couple that ranged in size from I think a couple dozen houses to the largest one being about 250 houses. The town worked with the residents once they expressed an interest in a proposed refuse district to help with the notarization process. That's a lengthy process I'll get into later, and shows why you do not see these things popping up all over the place, and why, if you do want to move forward, the town would need to be a partner with you just as a practical matter. In the end, the town selected bid from SARAC, Sealers, to provide annual services in the amount of $214, which was considerable savings on average for those people living in those districts. Now, does that mean 214 is the gold standard? No. It's competitive bidding. There's market forces, and prices change. It depends on what time of the year you go out. It depends on a whole host of things. But that's what Pittsford got, locked in, $214 for this year. And I believe there's a 2-year renewal on that. I could be wrong, but 2-year renewal on that. And they can renegotiate this year if they so choose. The town of Brighton now is they've had these for several years. I think a few decades actually. They made a concerted effort. I believe they have. They do it in small bits. They do it road by road. But I believe they have 40 of these things, very small though. They've contracted with Waste Management for $257 a year. So again, I don't know what everyone's paying. That's the facts for those towns. So the town of Pittsford did it. They've overall been very pleased thus far, but they're only 2 months in to the actual implementation of the contract. But we're very happy with how that has gone, and I believe they are adding probably several more this year. Now, the process of forming a refuse district is prescribed by state law. It's very specific. It's the state process for forming any special improvement district, and it goes to the town board of every town shall have the authority and may exercise the following powers with respect to improvement districts hereto and hereafter established, subject to the provisions of this article. I used to work in the state legislature. I hate reading laws. One of those is refuse and garbage districts. After a refuse and garbage district shall have been established in such town, the town board may provide for the collection of a resource recovery, yada yada yada. That's the section of state law, state town law, that provides the vehicle by which you may form a refuse district. A refuse district is not formed unilaterally by the 5 members of the town board. They are a part of this. But I want to make this clear from the onset. The town board is not interested in, right off the bat, saying, we want a district there. Our goal is to be receptive, to listen to people, to help facilitate if people are interested. But the town board is not going to go proposing districts. We are a part of the establishment of that district, but that part only happens when a requisite number of petitions are brought forth, which I'll get into shortly. So I just want to be very clear, because I know some people, they fear that government's trying to take over this and that. That's not our intent at all. And I will say, the state law does allow a town board to propose a district. A referendum has to be held in that case, but we have no intention of doing that. We want this to be the more grassroots, bottom-up approach. We want residents to tell us or propose this to us and allow us to determine if it's in the best interest. Now, the process. Interested residents establish district boundaries within their neighborhoods. So you look at a neighborhood. You live in a neighborhood. You say, where might it make sense? I live in Laurelton, right? Laurelton has a nice grid. It would make sense. Maybe the whole neighborhood. There's probably 2,000 houses in Laurelton. I'm going to get into shortly why we might have to think more practical about the size of these things, because the process really is cumbersome. It's not easy unless you're a registered notary and willing to walk and knock on a lot of doors. So really, I think that 50 to 200 homes is kind of your sweet spot. And again, the town we have resources, and we're happy to do this after the meeting. We're going to set up workshops, office hours to work with people if they want to map this out and see where in your neighborhood might make sense, which number of houses might be that sweet spot. And a lot of that's going to be your determination of if you or your neighbors might be able to put this together. Now, you're going to work with the town to establish a map and list of households. Now, once the neighborhood determines a proposed area for a district, the representative is going to contact our DPW, Commissioner Kiley and his team. They do a lot of our mapping work. Bob knows the town like the back of his hand, so this will be easy for him. Now, the town's goal, and we're required by law to do this, is to provide you with that map of the district and also prepare a petition. Now, the petition has to go to every single person living in that proposed district. It has to be mailed to them with very clear details about what the district boundaries are, what the possible and its prospective cost might be, and what we would determine that would probably look at neighboring towns. We're required by state law to do that. I don't really like that because I don't like putting a dollar amount there, but state law tells us to do that. So I'm actually going to put the most conservative number possible there. Now, proponents of the district, proponents being you, those who live in the district, can carry, you can knock on doors if you want. You can carry a petition with you, as you would do if you're, right now you're going to see people knocking on your door with designating petitions for a political process. You can have that petition thing with the 10 lines on it, but it has to be notarized. Every signature that goes into the establishment of a proposed refuge district has to be notarized. How many notaries do we have in here? Okay, we have a few. I knew Chuck Burrow was a notary, right? So notaries, you should never let someone know you're a notary, though, because that's you can charge them $2, remember. But again, that's why this is not an easy process, and it should be that way, right? This is setting up essentially a taxing jurisdiction. It shouldn't be as simple as going to a change.org petition and filling something out. I actually think that's a good check to have. If people really want to do it, it's something that they have to work hard towards. I think that's a good thing. Now again, that petition will be mailed to every single resident in the proposed district, who, if they want, can have it signed, have it notarized, and return it to us at Town Hall. I'll get into some of the opportunities of how we'll be helpful with that, mainly through the availability of notaries. I've really encouraged our staff, our organization here at Town Hall, to go out and get their notary license, mainly because we have a lot of people who come in every day and need things notarized, mainly because I sign a lot of documents every day and need a notary because I can't notarize my own signature. But nevertheless, we have those type of resources. We're going to be willing to set up, if you want, in your neighborhood. I know Pittsford did this, times where you can go to a designated location. We'll advertise this with residents, and they can come to that location, come to the firehouse, and myself or a notary will be there to help with the signing of that. So again, the town is not the ones gear starting this, but it is our responsibility to help facilitate it if residents want to pursue it. Now again, I said, did you say petitions? I kind of got into this already, but state law does not make the process simple. It must, and I'm saying it's not just it has to be notarized, signed by 50% of the resident property owners of that proposed district. So if you have 200 homes in the proposed district, you need 100 signatures from resident owners. You can't do renters either. So the denominator, the bottom number, that's resident owners. And that's why, again, I know some people are thinking, oh, I can do my whole neighborhood, which is a pretty big, right? Again, Laurelton has 1,500 homes, I believe. 750 homes being notarized. If you can accomplish that, good for you. But again, if you're thinking of doing this, I think you need to be pragmatic and realistic, because it is not an easy process. Now, petitions, and this is for a good reason. This isn't a reason we plucked out of thin air. Petitions would need to be submitted to the supervisor's office by April 30th. And that's because the town board needs to have adopt a resolution describing the proposed district and the cost of the typical homeowner, and we have to schedule a public hearing and notify every resident of that proposed district about the public hearing. Because the last thing we want is for people to be blindsided. Again, if this was something we move forward on with any proposed district, we're going to do everything we can to make sure every person in that proposed district knows exactly what is at play, has the because again, if 51% of the people sign that petition, 51% of the resident homeowners, that means 49% did not. And the goal is to make sure that those 49% are aware of what's happening, aware of the implications of that, the pluses, the potential downside. And that is what will happen. It's a backward working process. Ultimately, we need to have the district in place and the bid in place, working backwards from the adoption of our budget. That's why it needs to be really set in stone in the first third of the year. And at the end of the hearing, the town board makes a determination whether or not they want to move forward. If there's a galvanized amount of support or galvanized amount of opposition against it, that's a determination the town board will have to make on their own. Again, this is something we want to empower you to feel like you can propose, but that public hearing is a very good part of the process. After the district is formed, the town would issue competitive bids for refuse collection for all approved districts. It would be one bid for all of the districts. I don't know if that's required under state law, but it's certainly the most efficient way to do it, and that's how other towns have decided to do it. Once the lowest responsible bidder is chosen, the town will advise each household of the annual cost, hopefully much lower than your status quo. The services would begin January 1st following the adoption of the district. So again, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. That's why we're getting started early. This is something, if it does happen, the first sign of an impact you would see would be January 1st. Residents would see the billing on their tax bill and no longer receive a waste hauler. So the other thing about this, and I don't know if I put this in the disadvantages, you're paying your yearly amount up front. So that's another possible downside to it. You're not paying quarterly, you're not paying monthly. And I know some people already pay annually 12 months and hopefully receive a discount and incentive to do that. But again, that's another potential reason people might not want to do this. For residents who now pay extra for special services such as collection of trash and recycling from close to the house rather than curbside, again, the town will seek arrangements within that bid to make sure those are services you can procure directly with the waste hauler. Other services include things like leaf collection. We want to make sure that's a possibility with this, and I think that's something that's enticing. I know in some cases a waste hauler has been required to subcontract with a leaf collector. So if that's something your neighborhood is interested in, and yes, I'm well aware that Arundequoit does not have curbside leaf collection. I know that Penfield doesn't either, and a lot of other towns do. I'm very well aware of that. It's probably not something we're able to add to our bottom line at the time, but if it is something that this can be used as a vehicle for that, because I know I do get a lot of calls starting in October about leaf collection. Now, that's the process. I know that's cumbersome. You have your hand out. Most of that, what I said, was repeating that, hopefully with some good clip art. I did this PowerPoint on my own. Don't hold that against me. So again, Town Hall is not identifying proposed districts, but we're here to help. We're not telling you where districts should be. We can help you perhaps identify, if you have a general area, what block might make sense, but that's not our goal. We're not enticing people. We're not forcing you to do this. You can call my office or email us for more information about the initiative. I expect over the next handful of weeks, that'll kind of be the exploratory phase, right? And our goal really is to start, if people want to pursue these, and I really have no idea what outcome will come of this. I don't know if a lot of you will come tonight and say that's a lot to go through, or some of you are like all in on this, or some of you are all against it. I don't know. That's why we're having this session. That's why we're going to answer questions. But we're ready to help you with that process. It's going to involve some work on our end, a lot of preparation, a lot of getting stuff ready, but we have a work team here to do as much capacity as we need, because if people want to do this, again, it's our job to be there to help facilitate it. And that is the end of the slideshow. We're going to have Q&A. We do have handheld microphones. Ms. Vecchio is walking around with them. What we'll ask is that you raise your hand. We have our 4 panelists who can answer questions. My only thing is make sure the microphone is on. We do have people at home. But also, if you have a question and we can't answer it, we will try to get back to you tomorrow. That's my goal tomorrow. And if someone in the audience knows the answer, they can feel free to blurt it out as well. So I'm going to go sit down because I talk too much. And let's start the Q&A. And I will say one other thing. Truthfully, the turnout was a lot larger than I thought it would be. I put the over-under at 35, so I owe Nate Stone a lunch at Tie Me Up. But we are here, and Bob did bring his mapping software, and we'll stay as late if you want to start even tonight looking at potential districts. We have the software. It might be a little bit of a line, but again, our goal is in the next week to make ourselves available to you, and we'll probably set some designated times, assuming that there is interest. We'll probably get those out tomorrow via social media. And honestly, I encourage you that if you did not sign in, please leave your email address, because we can communicate with you through email as well if you're not on social media. But with that, we'll start the Q&A.
So since some of the impetus for this seems to be coming from the neighborhood groups, what's to prevent a neighborhood group? I live in Eagle Heights, right? So what's to prevent us from going directly to whoever we want and saying, we've got 200 houses, we're going to go with waste management, we want you to give us a lower rate and just bill us directly. Don't do any districts, don't fool with taxes, don't do any of the gobbledygook. I mean, there's a lot that you just mapped out. What's to prevent a neighborhood group from just doing it on their own as a regular negotiation?
If my colleagues disagree with me, there's nothing against from doing that. It's probably would be an informal agreement. This is more, I guess, concrete, predictable. that's what I would say. I don't think there's any law that prohibits you from doing that. If it was as simple as that, I think more people would do it. If you want to feel empowered to do that, by all means, go for it. I would say. I'm sure it's been done and with some degree of success. And again, I don't think there's anything preventing you from doing that.
Hi. I've been in Arundecoit for about 6 years, and I've had Waste Management, and I have been extremely happy with them. Now, I'm on the Nextdoor website, and I see other people complaining about their carriers all the time and the costs. They raise my price, I call them. I pay $252 a year, and I'm concerned about getting with one of these haulers that won't take everything that you put to the curb. Waste Management even just sent me an email reminding us that anything you put out, we will take it, no problem. I had a bathroom renovation. My contractor filled, I have 2 big bins. They took everything. So this is my concern, that while I think the town may be able to negotiate some pretty good prices, I negotiate my own and I've done very well. And I'm concerned about getting a service that will not give me what I need. And like I said, Waste Management, they've been just tremendous. I've never hear anybody complaining about them except their prices. And I just say to them, just call them. Tell them what your neighbor is paying, and they'll lower your price. The town gets involved. I don't know what I'm going to have, or whether I'll be able to then wouldn't be able to negotiate for a change. So that's all I have to say.
Can I just say, so first of all, I will say this: if there are proposed districts, because this is a democratic process and it's a neighborhood discourse, if there are proposed districts, and even if districts petitions are generated, it's our goal to be transparent and let people know where there are proposed districts. You'll know because you get a likely one, but we want to make sure people know if there are, because honestly, if that's the case and you want to communicate with your neighbors about the downside, you're free to do so as well. Bob, I think you had something to add.
Yeah, I guess on the bulk refuse question that you had, Miss, that is something that we also at our level have at least begun to think about, and within the bid specifications for any district, we would have in there certain clauses and language to ensure that the waste hauler would still continue to pick up that bulk refuse, be it a bathroom remodel, like you said, a sofa, a mattress, etc. So we would certainly have that language within that bid package.
But you make a very good point. I know there's probably a lot of people in here who are happy with your waste hauler, and I understand that. And you do a lot better job negotiating your price. You're doing a lot better than I am. So can I call you tomorrow? Do you want a job here? I know, and I honestly, personally, I think that's good. I don't know if that's. That's.
That hurts. That hurts.
We have
there.
to stick to the topic in general. Okay, so we had some other questions.
Mr. Supervisor, I have
Hello,
two
Richard.
questions. First of all, you're collecting all the money for the whole year in January. Will we be paying the race haulers all the money at one time in January, or are you going to pay them monthly? The second question I had was, I have a 4-page information sheet from Pittsford. They referred to the 50% not of individuals. They referred to the 50% represented by the assessment in that district.
Richard, I'm sorry. You're correct in that. Can I just, before you go on, clarify that? You are correct. It's not 50% of the house, and I think I had that in my PowerPoint, but skipped over. It's 50% of the assessed value. That's under state law. So it could very well be 47% of the homes, of the resident homes, but it could be over 50%. So thank you, Richard.
The only thing I would add to that,
I can take payment here. Okay. So within the town of Pittsford, they currently invoice on a monthly basis. So the refuse hauler would invoice the town for the month of January, say. The town would remit payment to that waste hauler end of January. So it would be a monthly payment. Yep.
Right there.
Say you're in a refuse district for the first year, and after the first year, a bunch of the people are unhappy about it. How do you get out of it?
Andrew, you want to take that one?
yeah, so
Bob, by the way, Bob Calley predicted this question would come up. So made our lawyer look into it.
So there's two ways you can get rid of an existing special district. You can do it by petition again. People can go around and circulate a petition within the boundaries and say we don't like it. Then there'd be an entirely similar process where the town board holds a public hearing after it sees the petition and then decides whether or not to extinguish the district. The town board could also use an alternative procedure, but basically both procedures require some form of public hearing. So if people decide they don't like it after a few years, we can always get rid of it. It's just another process similar to what we just used.
Question in the back, Mr. Supervisor. To follow on Mr. Barone's question, how would the person carrying the petition know what the assessed value is of each home in their neighborhood to achieve the 50%?
That's something we could provide. I mean, we've done very good at updating our data here. We can merge certain. Okay. Actually, your assessed value has gone up. The taxes have stayed beneath the tax cap. But anyway, yes, we can, to answer the question, we can merge that data and provide that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have a question. Why can't you, as an individual, opt out of this if your neighborhood becomes in this, part of this district? Why is that freedom of choice being taken away from me, who right now, I'm paying $223 a year for my trash pickup, and I get an additional month for free. Now, and I'm hearing these prices that you're coming up with, it's gonna be a lot higher than what I'm paying right now.
Understand.
So why couldn't I opt out of this? Why do I lose that freedom of choice if my district decides to go with us?
It's a good question, and that's the process prescribed. We're doing this all pursuant to state law. That's how the state law prescribes it. So again, everything we're doing here, proposing here, is the process set up by state law. So it's a good and it's a fair question, and I understand it. And certainly, obviously, something that weighs into consideration as people decide if they want to do this or not. You broke the microphone. Good job.
The bid rigging process. Wrong words.
Well, so I guess I can answer this.
That's a it slipped out, right?
I can answer the second part about the procurement. Everything we do is subject to state procurement law. The town has its own procurement policy that has many safeguards into those conflict of interest. So it's nearly impossible to rig a bid now, even if we wanted to. So there's certain. I mean, there's state law, there's town law that prevents that. As far as the responsible refuse collector, maybe Bob has answered it.
I can handle the responsibility of a bidder. So typically during a bid process, the town would acquire services or products as we sit down with vendors to review what they bid on. It's during the de-scoping of any one vendor to ensure that vendor A and vendor B bid on the same thing, apples to apples. So the responsibility, if you will, is ensuring that all of the contractors, specifically the lowest bidder, bid the job, be it a service or a product, to the specifications within the bid package and also to the full understanding of what is proposed. For instance, you would have a bidder, say a refuse collection company, Johnny Joe's Refuse Company. We would want to make sure they have proper insurance. We would want to make sure that they're not taking recycling and just offloading that into the landfill, that it's being properly disposed of. I think the firms in our area are all reputable in nature, but we would want to vet them, make sure they have a certain character witnesses is the wrong word, but references, excuse me, as I lose that word, to ensure that they are responsible.
So there would be nothing in the state law or anywhere that gives preference for New York state-owned or locally owned companies versus, say, a company from California that has a lower cost. There's no "I love New York" clause in this. Right?
No, the notion of a lowest responsible bidder, that's something that the town board could consider as one factor. But really, when searching for a lowest responsible bidder, it has to choose somebody who can perform the specifications of the RFP for the price they quoted. So you can't have a pizza delivery company submitting a bid to do garbage hauling. It has to be somebody who can do the work as specified at the price specified.
Can I just answer the point you raised about the composting too? There's no reason why a contract wouldn't be able to provide that as an additional service for you. So there's nothing that would preclude us from including that as something that someone could opt into. And I don't know if your neighbor does that currently or how they do it.
Yeah, they do it. So I'll pass it on here, but just to clarify, so it doesn't matter where the company is owned. They could be from Alaska or Florida or Texas, New York, Arizona. There's no preference for New York or a local company.
So generally no. It's a consideration, but generally no. And I'll note, I think Waste Management's domiciled in Arizona. I know Casella's in, I think, Seneca County. I don't know where, I think SARAC is Monroe County.
Okay, all right, thank you.
There's value propositions to everything, and certainly that's something that's a goal. I can hear you. I'll repeat your question.
Somebody that wanted to have an additional collection picked up, such as tree branches and all the rest of that baloney that Waste Management would take, how are they going to contact the person that's doing their garbage to pick it up? And how are they going to pay them?
So,
Pocket?
pardon?
Out of their pocket?
That would be a separate a contract with the waste hauler. Yes.
That's what I wanted to say.
Oh, can we try to stay to the mic or if we? Okay. Go. You can be next, ma'am. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I just had a couple of questions and observations. So if your town does, or your neighborhood does nothing, life stays as it is today?
Everything's the same.
That is correct.
Okay, so if you don't form a refuse district, nothing changes?
Correct.
And so, can I just make a point with Pittsford? Roughly, they made this effort last year, and I think they had a total about 450 households now in refuge districts. I believe there's about 12,000 households in Pittsford, so roughly a small percentage of Pittsford. And they made they were happy with the outcome. But again, it's not if nothing happens in your neighborhood, nothing changes.
Okay. Second, would you be putting in the contracts that, because the environment is part of this initiative, that they would have the covered recyclable totes so that when it's windy and your neighbor's recyclables end up in your driveway,
Bob,
doesn't happen?
Yes, we can definitely include that, and that would be very worthwhile to include.
Okay. And my last comment is just an observation. When this gentleman was asking about how would you know the assessed values, and you would provide that. I know it's available online in the tax rolls, but I'm uncomfortable with that being handed out.
Well, it's only
I
the
might not know, and I don't really think it's their business.
it's only the aggregate assessed value. So the town will provide the aggregate assessed value.
For the refuse district.
That's right.
Okay.
And so I understand your point. What I would say is, if there are people doing this in their neighborhood, a handful of people, and they tell us where they have, we would be able to answer to them whether or not they've gotten that requisite amount.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
but
you.
yes, so good point. But again, it is public knowledge.
You spoke of the decision to be made, I think, April 30th for the budget.
No, that's when the petitions would need to be returned by us.
to be returned.
Yes.
It just seems like the town has a lot of man hours involved in this, and already, and will continue to do so. And I just am wondering why the town would kind of advocate taking all this on. I mean, you're going to have to bill people. You're saying that if there's a problem with the company, the hauler, and we're not satisfied to call the town, it seems like you're taking a lot on. And rather do all that, maybe you could put that money aside for the leaf vac and get that going again, because Arundecoit has a lot of senior citizens, and I've helped my neighbors bend over and bag leaves. And leaves are a very big issue living here because we have so many of them. Also, reading this over, it seems like the consumer, the homeowner, is going to have, it's not going to be as simple as paying one bill, as you state, on our taxes. We now have to negotiate getting our leaves picked up. And that is something that my company does. Without question, I can put up to 20 black bags of leaves, okay, and they'll pick them up. I can put a sofa out there and they'll pick it up. I can leave for 4 weeks and they will stop the billing. They allow 4 weeks, to leave, and then they'll stop it. The 5%, the district charge, that's more than what I get percentage on my refuge bill. And the biggest thing is there's no guarantee. So there's no guarantee in a lower price. We have to negotiate picking up our leaves, which is a step we have to take, and which is something that we're not going to have any control over, because it sounds like we'll have one vendor, one hauler to negotiate with. So we all know, what a monopoly is, and what that presents in terms of pricing, the disadvantage there. Competition is what lowers prices, not a monopoly. And if I look at the disadvantages, they outweigh any potential advantages on here.
So just
And all, yes?
Oh, it's just a general point again. And it's actually a good point, and something I think helps kind of inform this process. Ultimately, if there is a proposed district, I think the town board would be very interested in knowing what people are currently paying. That's something I think as there's an engagement process going on. I think the town board would be very interested in knowing what people are paying.
We're not paying what you're paying. We're not paying 500. I'll tell you that right now. So that concerns me. If you are paying 500, what that bidding process is going to be like, to be honest with you.
Well, again, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And also, I have a question. What if you're late on your taxes? What happens to that fee? Will that fee increase, or,
What fee? If you're late on your taxes, be treated the same as your services would continue.
I understand, but say if you're late on your taxes and you know how you get interest and you have to pay more, would there be interest applied to that too?
My understanding, if you're late on your taxes, the interest is applied to your entire tax bill. So your tax bill would be slightly larger, right? So yes, the interest would be.
So what would include the garbage pickup?
Your taxes are your taxes. So if you're late on your taxes, it includes your county taxes, what you pay for the consolidated school district, your fire taxes, all those things.
So yes. That's not good. So if you happen to be late on your taxes, you have another fee on there. We have another fee on there that we're going to have to pay more interest, or be punished for. I don't think we need any more fees on our taxes.
Okay.
I think trash pickup is a very private thing. We're private homeowners, and now I see if we happen to be late on our taxes, they're going to go up. I don't see how this can save any money at all, quite frankly.
Well, I think if I can address just one component, and that would be the leaf pickup. So within town code, any refuse hauler operating within the town limits must pick up bagged leaves. Period. That's to do business in the town. The Department of Public Works provides a license for waste haulers to pick up those bagged leaves. In this, in a proposed district, if a neighborhood association moves forward and gets the required signatures and it comes back to the town board, if that happens, that would still be required pursuant to town code, that bag leaves still be picked up. So it wouldn't be an additional service. I think, Miss, what you were hearing is the supervisor potentially discussing another concept for the waste hauler to vacuum leaf up unbagged leaves at an additional charge. I think that's what Supervisor Seeley was alluding to, as opposed to the bag leaf point that you're making. So
I'm
if I
reading
can just,
it, actually, sir. I'm reading some additional services, door side pickup, leaf collection, not covered in the town's contract with the refuse collector, must be negotiated between the property owner and the collector, and most likely for an additional fee. So it's kind of preparing us to pay an additional fee to pick up our leaves.
Loose, unbagged leaves.
loose
doesn't-
and unbagged.
All right, then it should say,
I'm specific, so
it-
what I'll do is,
it should say unbagged on here. It doesn't say unbagged.
okay, so
It says leaf collection, you know, that we're gonna have to find our own way for leaf collection.
And I guess just to clarify, that's not the intent of that. So unbagged or
Okay.
loose leaves.
Unbagged.
Ms. Vecchio, I think we had one back there.
Go ahead, sir.
I almost forgot what I was going to talk about.
I hear you back there.
Okay, I've got
Something.
one observation. I'm familiar with resident-owned communities in Florida, and in resident-owned communities, about like 200 units, they do what you're talking about, but it's all run by the residents, so there's no other fees. They volunteer as president and vice president, and so they do get very good fees, but there's no additional charges because the residents themselves do it. So I'm almost leery when government starts putting 5%. Governor Cuomo could make it 6% or 7%, and then they could add a service charge and a fee. So that's the part that concerns me. Now the other question is one size fits all. I have some issues with one size fits all because, like, if you go to Florida for a month, you're still going to pay, and if you're a senior citizen and you put out a little bag a week, you're going to pay as much. And the other issue I have is code enforcement. And what I mean by code enforcement is sometimes when I'm driving to work in the morning on garbage days, I go by houses that have 12 or 15 cars in the driveway, and they have huge garbage piles that it would seem to be would encourage if it's just one fee and they have to take it all. What's keeping somebody that's got a restaurant downtown or a 7-Eleven store and they have to have garbage? They bring it all to their spot, and they're taking up 5 times the amount that somebody else that has one bag. I mean, I would say before this would ever work, you would have to have some kind of code enforcement to make sure that each house has, if you have 2 bedrooms, you have 4 people in it, not 12 people. Is anything going to be done to address that?
So right now, that would be a violation of town code. So if that happens and it's happening.
Would you do some kind of code check before this would be implemented to make sure that the occupancies of the houses, because I see lots of houses with lots of garbage and lots of cars.
So you're saying should some houses pay more?
Well, no, I'm saying that if you implement this service, that would encourage people to bring their garbage to one house so that they don't have to pay garbage from another district. You know, like if they live in Greece, they bring it here because they all pick it up.
I guess my answer would be that they could probably already do that because if somebody has
Right,
a
but
waste hauler.
correct. But then that individual garbage company could say, "Look, this is way too much garbage. Something's not right." But once you do it as a community, like you say, one size fits all, then that would encourage more people putting more on that particular. You know, like I'll take your garbage, and then they all put it in that one pile.
Okay, I think any contract would require the waste hauler to pick up the garbage. We would certainly want to disincentivize people from doing that, but I understand your point. The other point, and I What was your first question? Because I had an answer to it.
Oh, well, I talked about what's called resident-owned communities.
That
where
was the second question.
Right.
Oh, yes. No, I've forgotten it now. Sorry, buddy. So can I answer that too? So ultimately, I heard you said there's got to be a guarantee. The town board elects to enter into the contract or not. If we don't like the price, we don't enter into the contract. So that's, I mean, that's why we'd like to know probably what people are paying in that district. If we don't like the price, and we don't think the price is fair, and we don't think it's a value proposition, the town board's under no requirement to move forward. Council, is that correct? Can we let other people ask questions? Thank you.
I would walk that back just a little bit. I would say that once a refuse district is established and it goes out to bid, if you get 4 bids and they're all of high prices, you have to select the lowest responsible bidder. So I would say something, there will be a public hearing, and I think that's important, is you get these proposed districts, there'll be a public hearing, people can make comments like they've been making tonight, and if the town board decides it's not in the public's interest to establish the refuse district, that's the point to cut it off before the district's exactly established.
Thank you. Next question? Yes.
So I'd like to echo the concern of sort of one size fits all. I'm a single guy. I don't generate a bunch of trash. I pay Casella $216 for biweekly pickup with my really nice large recycle toter. That's probably what I make most of my waste in, is recyclables. Is there any way or something that's preventing the town from getting multiple service levels and offering that to residents? Because I know, like myself, I don't generate much waste. My next door neighbor is a single elderly lady. She generates almost no waste. I don't necessarily want to be paying for services that I don't need. In addition, my second question sort of is, so I live in the Point Pleasant area. We're a unique mix of waterfront homes that are assessed very, very high, and older cottages. Like I bought mine for under 100,000. If we're going by assessed value, is there a way where we could require it so it's, excuse me, a little bit more equitable, so that somebody whose house is assessed 3, 4, 5 times what mine is isn't essentially worth 5 signatures in terms of, if we're going based on valuation?
So, are you talking about the actual cost then that you would pay, or the actual petitioning process?
So the petitioning process,
it's the aggregate of the assessed value of the petitions that are submitted. So, yes,
it still comes down to, if somebody signs and their house is worth, their signature is worth more because their property is worth more towards that aggregate.
Yeah, and that's
somebody whose house is $500,000 in a district where all the homes together are worth about $1 million is more than somebody whose house is assessed at, say, $75,000.
Yeah, I grew up right near the Gold Coast. I know what you're talking about. It's similar. It's the state law that prescribes it. It's the same way if you want to form a new sewer district. It's the same process. It's the assessed value. I honestly don't know why that is, but that's the state law. The first question was regarding multiple service, and correct me if I'm wrong. It needs to be the same charge per unit. So similar, if you look on your tax bill, there's one charge for one unit for the consolidated sewer district that is uniform throughout the whole town. So that's how it is. It's a one charge unit.
But like multifamily homes will have more than one unit. So if you have a 2-family home, that's 2 units. So there is it does address that in some way, but Dave's reference to a sewer district is right. It's hard to measure how much effluence people are putting into a sewer district. So instead of actually metering every sewer, you're establishing a unit system. It's the same with this garbage pickup system.
And I guess if I can, with regard to the recycling toter, currently the last bid that the town of Pittsford put out, they did not have recycling toters within that original bid package, which in hindsight, after speaking to their town officials, was one thing that we will certainly heed and ensure that we have a 90-gallon refuse toter and a 90-gallon recycling toter. I fit into that same thing where a lot of my waste is recycling.
Go ahead, Vince. Is the mic on? That's fine. I can hear you. I'll repeat the question.
They're tripping over themselves trying to get bids and customers. And with our town taking this all over or taking over districts, they're going to be lobbying you. They're not going to be killing themselves to try to get our business. They're going to be lobbying you. And the prices will not be better for us. They won't. And we pay enough in taxes, the highest in the country. In the country.
So again,
In the country.
again, you're speaking to us, but you're probably also speaking to your neighbors too. And ultimately, it's the people in this room who are potentially going to be proposing these districts. So, I mean, that's point well taken. So thank you. We'll make sure you get.
Initially, I was going to talk a little bit about not being able to buy what I want from who I want at my negotiated price. Everything doesn't matter that much right now. But listening to what everyone else was talking about was that, as I understand it, we're going to have three basic companies, and they're going to bid on a district, and the winner gets that district. So the issue I have is that eliminates free market competition, and it eliminates the company getting the highest value from the consumer's point of view. You know, they're now put on an edge. Look, Southwest Airlines was little bitty airlines way long ago. I used to fly when they were Pacific Southwest. Little bitty thing. They're now one of the giants because of the service they provide. I have a service provider that I can bring anything out to the curb, and if it's something unusual, I call them. They know it's there. No problem. My daughter has a company, and that they were going to put a mattress out. That was going to be $100 charge. A sofa was going to be a $75 charge to haul away. Now, if we're going to accept companies based on their ability to haul garbage, all three of these can. So that's out of the equation. What I'm not hearing is the customer sat part. In an open market, the company getting the greatest amount of customer satisfaction will slowly take customers from the other, become the dominant factor, and the ones that really make their profit by charging for everything, for, you know, you have an extra bag of beef that's going to be $25, those companies will slowly fade out of the picture, as they should. What I'm seeing here is a system by which one of the lesser companies puts in a winning bid, they get a market, they're locked in with it, and everything else has to be negotiated by the consumer. Now, we're talking as if there's going to be just a few dollars charges, but by observation, there's a $100 charge, $75 charge. I don't know if any of that's going to be covered, but I really am strongly opposed. I'd like an explanation how this all fits in. So it's not just a right, but how does this all fit in with supporting free market and not floating a company that, because of their pricing and service to the consumer, should by rights sink out of sight and be gone. And I'm not saying anyone is like that. Oh, actually, yeah. Okay. But, you know, you're artificially supporting something that should be able to make it on its own or die on its own. But we're ensuring that they stay stable. And that goes against all free market principles in customer service. So it's really a customer service issue.
If I may, and I don't want to go too long. One of the things I'm concerned about is the I would say new lack of competition. You've seen the consolidation of waste haulers, and that might be a concern for someone. It might not be. It sounds like a lot of people are content with their current waste hauling. Again, competitive bidding is held to certain specs. The town, it's in a contract with the town. I'd like to say the town does a good job negotiating with those companies with which we have contracts with and hold them to a certain degree of standard. And I understand, I was going to assume you took some classes as an economist, so I'm not going to get into a lecture about free markets because you'd probably kill me, but it's an understandable point, sir. And again, that's why we have this meeting to provide information for you. And we're not going to discourage or encourage people. That's why in that PowerPoint, you don't see a lot of PowerPoints for people who are just 100% a proponent of also putting the disadvantages in. So that's why we wanted to be fair and balanced. And I hope you saw some of the points you made were in that PowerPoint presentation. And that's why, you know, there are costs and benefits. And I think that's why neighborhoods are allowed to make that decision. And again, I think you have prospective people who might be considering proposing this. And I think you're informing them just as well as you're informing us. So I appreciate that.
And with regard to a contractor that may not have great customer service, this would be on an annual basis for a contract. And if the vast majority of folks gave feedback to the town would opt out of that contract and rebid that contract in previous years, in next year's bid package.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think that was the big thing that was missing earlier was that fact that it can be yearly put to a bid.
Correct.
If the district requests it, could it be always just as part of the way the district works that it would be put up to a bid every year?
It certainly could be. The way we have done bid packages and the way that we have seen other communities do these, it would be a one-year term contract with two one-year extensions. So in December of 2021, the town board would have an action to extend the contract for another year, which would move through year 2022. At the conclusion of 2022, it could be rebid. It could be extended for another year, depending on really satisfaction from feedback from constituents. And ultimately, you make a good point. Yes, it certainly can be rebid annually.
So it's basically the same process that we individually do now, but you guys would be doing it.
That is correct.
Calling
Yep.
calling everyone and figuring it out.
But I would say hopefully informed by the people that live in the district. I would assume that should this
Correct.
move forward, you live in a district. If you're not happy with how things are going, you'll let the town know. I would hope so.
So a follow-up as well. A lot of people touched on specific things that they want in the district. Is it possible for whoever's gathering the petition to collect that information and then kind of come up with the overall desired specs for the contract?
So I would,
for example, this 2-week thing, they could, if everyone in the district wanted a 2-week thing, they would do it.
so it would be, Andrew, can you just clarify, does it have to be one contract for the entire town? Or is that just generally the efficient way to do it?
So this is in section 198D, I believe. So the town board can opt to do one hauler for all refuse districts, or it can do multiple haulers for separate refuse districts. So it's pretty flexible. With respect to gathering information in the petitioning process, nothing's stopping the person or the proponent from seeking neighborhood input as to what the RFP should be. But the petition itself is very limited in what it says. So if you want to keep a separate notepad, or the proponent wants to, and collect ideas and then present that to the town, I think that's great, and those ideas could probably be worked into the RFP. But the petition itself is a very brief document. It just says the boundaries of the district and certain other things prescribed by statute.
But again, just to be complete, thank you, Andrew, to be completely forthcoming, again, you talk about the 2 week, 1 week, there can't be a variable rate within that district. Everyone in the district has to be charged the same.
Right. And then lastly, if the petition is, if the district is laid out in the petition, but you go through and you start gathering, signatures, and a whole corner of the district doesn't want to be included, how is it easy enough to just change the map, or do you have to go through and get new signatures for everybody?
Definitely letting the lawyer answer this one.
So I'm going to give a somewhat complicated answer, so forgive me. So you can't really change the petition after you start. If you go out there and you're starting on a petition, you realize there's not enough support, let's shrink the boundaries, that's really not going to fly. There is one mechanism. When the town board's approving or disapproving of the petition, it can exclude or include certain people that it thinks should have been included, but it can only do so if that doesn't change the quorum for the petition. So you need 50% of the homeowners, the resident homeowners, to approve. It can't enlarge or shrink a district more than the number of signatures needed for that petition. So if you're going around and you're realizing that the petition as we've proposed it, the district is too large and there's not enough support, the best thing would be to start from scratch.
So the denominator doesn't change. Who is next with the mic? Right here? Go ahead, miss. I don't think so, but
Is that on?
there you go.
Thank you. Maybe I'm repeating again. I have terrific service on my street, no complaints. But when we talk about reputable dealers across the street, we have a dealer who forgot to come 5 weeks in a row. 5 weeks in a row, which I did call and let him know about it. We have another pickup company that takes the garbage can from the grass. When they empty it, they put it into the middle of the driveway. So the homeowner has to park the car, get out of the car, move the can, go back in the car, and put the car in the driveway. That was the second one. The third one, right now, you can watch him every week, backs all the way down the street. It's kind of funny, but it scares the heck out of me. Here's school kids getting on the bus. Backs down the street. Instead of going around the block, I think is their goal, to say, oh, well, just sneak down there, but we're all watching it sneak down. So I'm assuming in this case that if people called and say this is what's going on, you would wait till the end of the year, have complaints, and then say these people aren't as reputable as we thought they might have been. On paper, they probably all look the same, but in reality, some of them are pretty sad.
So, Andrew just explained, you know, if you're looking at lowest responsible bidder, that can include reputation. So if you, when we're in the process of looking, and I don't know how many, look, there's 3 waste haulers in the area. I don't know if this moves forward, if you're going to have, I don't know if there's going to be ones popping out of the area. I'm not sure. Pittsford had, I believe, 3 bid. I will say, though, if you're looking at responsible bidder, that can include their reputation. So honestly, the town would want feedback from residents. And, you know, I know my constituent's office gets feedback on waste haulers. We do hear it. And when waste haulers aren't complying with town code, we let them know that. Generally, they're responsive, but they shouldn't continue that. And that's the problem. They you know, so, but anyway, the town board would want to be informed, I think, of those concerns. So I don't know, and I'm hearing concerns about, I'm hearing some like their hauler, some don't like their hauler. I don't know if there's one really good hauler in here and 2 bad haulers that I don't know about. But again, it's that helps inform our decision or any prospective hypothetical decision. Yes, Ellen.
I'd like to just say with anything, there's pluses and minuses. But I want to talk about the environmental advantages to this. I'm sorry, Dave, you're wrong. There's not 3 of them going down the street. There's 6. You got the waste hauler and the recycling bin, or recycling truck there. Not only that, they're causing potholes on the road. So now our taxes are going to go up, dear Bob, because your crew's out there repairing, you know, potholes. So from an environmental advantage, you know, having 2 trucks come up and down your street, plus the safety issues, you know, it's much better than 6 of them. Thank you.
Sure, on the road degradation standpoint, you know, 1 refuse truck, one garbage hauler would equate to 1,000 trips of a 4-door residential sedan, right? And so that road asphalt surface breaks down at a faster rate with you know, a double axled truck that's over, you know, 20 ton, right, than a 4-door sedan that's carrying, you know, children home from school. So 100% on the road degradation standpoint, traffic is another component of this. One advantage of having a district would be all refuse would be picked up on one day at one time, 1 trash truck, 1 recycling truck right thereafter. So yes, good points.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
I don't think it's on.
It's on.
Oh, it's on. Hi. First of all, thank you for holding this meeting tonight. It was very interesting.
Thank you for coming, everyone, by the way. This is a great turnout, and we appreciate the questions.
I guess you've given out a lot of information. I'm a little bit confused. So you're going to be sending a petition home or something home to all residents explaining that? No.
So again, here's how the process would work. If residents approach, and this is what we're required to do under state law, if residents, let's say hypothetically, Dave Long back there, hi Dave, let's say Dave Long, and I'm not singling him out, but I'm not going to tell people where you live either, but Dave Long is interested in forming a district in his neighborhood. he would come to us, we would work with him in maybe 150 homes. We would determine where the district boundaries were. From that, we would generate the list. We would
Okay.
send a petition to every single homeowner in that.
In that district?
Yes, correct. You're not leaving tonight with petitions, no.
No, I understand
Yes,
that.
okay.
Okay, like, I know a lot of my neighbors don't go onto Facebook or anything like that, so they were not aware of this
Understood.
meeting tonight. And I guess it's my concern that the district, it really needed something from the town explaining all of this, other than on Facebook. Something emailed back, not emailed, but mailed back to the homes or to the residents, so that they would have been aware of this meeting tonight. And so that they're not blindsided when they do get this letter, that their district is in consideration for the plan.
So just to answer that, and I understand, and I would love to do a mailing for every single thing we do.
Right.
We've increased. It's the cost of postage. We're mindful of that.
Okay.
We are having 2 additional sessions.
Yeah, but the importance of this.
Understand, and I'll just say. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just say, for instance, our senior newsletter is going out in a few weeks. That will have the subsequent 2 meetings in it. So we do I will say, we make a concerted effort to try and make people aware of this, and we will continue to do that. Yes, sir.
I guess one of the things you guys brought up was the fact that people might be interested in recycling toters because the town of Pittsford didn't do that. So that would mean that you're not going to get the price that you got for the town of Pittsford for any hauler, because toters cost money, people. They're not cheap.
Yep.
So if someone is giving an extra service like a toter for recycling, which I'm not saying is bad, there's a cost associated with that toter. It's not $8. It's not $10. When's the last time you looked to see what the cost of a toter was? So when you're pushing forward these costs, we're not going to see that lower rate that Pittsford has because they didn't include the toter that the trash hauler has to pay for. Number one. Number two, service is not service is not service. I drove, and I'm not going to talk about who the hauler was. The hauler went down a street, a residential street, 45 miles an hour. 45. Was that for safety? The person who brought up the idea of environment being just the street, well, what does the hauler do with the trash? Now, you're talking about a responsible hauler, sure, and there are certain state standards for that, but what is the actual record of each one of these haulers for that? Next point, you want to wait a year to put up with bad service until you rebid again and we kick them out, when we can call them ourselves and get them out because they're not providing good service. And yes, a town moves slowly, as you do with repairs on my street. Very slowly. And I've been there 14 years, and you still haven't repaired the street. So you can call and talk about the town all you want. Another thing, don't we all pay for something a little bit more because the value of the service is better? I do. I buy Dawn detergent for my dishes because the dollar store bottle is crap and doesn't clean and cut the oil. That might sound funny, but everyone's price. No. A lot of my choices are based on the value of the product and the service, the satisfaction and the choice of the person and the item you are buying. You can beat price to death all you want. I will not buy dollar store detergent.
You can tell me which road you live on. We'll try to get the potholes filled there. It sounds like you and I can talk afterwards on that standpoint, sir.
I just wanted to touch on the recycling thing because the lesson learned from our neighboring community was the reason they said they would have gone to the toters in the first place, they were giving folks 2 open bins. The man-hour time that the waste hauler was wasting going back and forth with the 2 physical bins that were blown all over and picking stuff up versus the one that was capped and was hooked up by the truck, it was actually a savings for them to get the big toter. So I wouldn't fear the big toter in the cost.
Can I just add, oh, go ahead, sir, go ahead.
If I may, I'm a refuse hauler. I don't particularly service in Irondequoit, but as the two bin option for recycling compared to the toter, the toter is definitely more expensive for service. It's easier for us to handle. It's neater. We don't lose as many recycling bins as we do compared to toters. And you know, the town to set up small districts of 125 homes, 150 homes. I can't come to Irondequoit from Greece or from Webster or Ontario to service 100 homes in Irondequoit and make it any cheaper for you than what you have now. Which, if your prices are running $250, $275 a year for service, you got a pretty good deal. You know, I've been in the business almost 40 years through my family, and you know, the prices have not historically changed much in the last 40 years. And you know, there may be at the point now where prices do need to go up further than where they're at. And if you try and bid for 1 year at a time with a 2-year renewal, I can't go and say, hey, I need to buy 5 trucks to service 25,000 homes or 10,000 homes in this area that are up for bid. And after 3 years, I still got trucks that I got payments on. Can't do it. I can't charge you enough to do that kind of work and do it for 1 year at a time. It just doesn't work that way. And the bank's not going to finance me, you know, for a 12-month contract. It's just not going to happen.
Thank you. I appreciate the input. Can I ask you a question? Because and this is more for perspective and in your experience, and if you don't know the answer, it's fine. So the number that was put out for Pittsford, I looked at the neighborhoods in Pittsford that the districts were in, and one house was about the size of my street. So there's a density component. Is it reasonable to believe that a town like Irondequoit, it's more efficient for a waste hauler, and it might be more competitively priced? Do you base it on density?
Right now, we do not. You know, years ago it was based on density, and everybody worked in a certain area, and everybody kind of stuck to their areas back in the 60s, the 70s, the early 80s. Well, everybody wanted a choice back at that point, so everybody started spreading their wings, and okay, I'm going to work over here, I'm going to run over here and do these few stops, and now we're to the point where the town don't like it, the residents don't like it. They got what they wanted 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Now they don't want it no more. And, you know, as you push further towards districts, the amount of companies that are out and available to bid on those districts is few and far between. You know, there's Waste Management right now, there's Casella, there's one other hauler that could possibly handle a whole town as a new district. You know, and I know you're not trying to set up a whole town's worth of districts, but you know, as one area starts, more start, and as further and further it goes on down the line, and then you start to cut into, you know, Sirik, which has done the competitive pricing in Pittsford, which I can't believe they're doing it that cheap. It's very, very low priced. I can't do it for that kind of money.
Thank you, sir.
You know, it's not feasible for a small company to go out and run around and pick up, you know, 75 houses here, 25 houses there on this street, and they could be from one side of the town to the other for those 75. You know, it's hard.
I appreciate that. He was actually helping answer a question I had, so I thank you, sir.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Yes, go ahead. Right. If you get to an area, you know, now you're talking where you got to have 500 or 600 homes to a district. You know, that would be the only way, because that would more or less get to a day's worth of work. Right.
That's right.
But you got to have the 500 or 600 homes in one district in order to make it. And then if you got the time to put the truck there for one day, because you still have to find somewhere else for the rest of the week for that truck.
That's fine.
And I'm talking from
Oh, there
here
you are.
now.
Hello.
Hi. And just everyone shares good
Yes,
things.
can we stop chat? We can't hear her. Thank you.
Everybody shares good things, but we also have to remember that our town really has moved forward on such good green initiatives. And I'm thinking of, I have grandchildren here, children in the town, and I don't have 15 bags of leaves. I would try to find, I'm hoping that along the way, we do build in something that our leaves don't end up in the landfills, they end up being composted. And this is an opportunity, again, another green initiative that our town can do. Recycle, the big recycle bins are something big because I have 2 small ones and I tried to sort them or do things still. I mean, again, the idea of pushing recycling smartly, the idea of doing our leaves because we're a town that has huge trees. I feel like our town makes those good choices and not just getting down on everything that's going to go wrong. They gave us prices. They're looking at good deals. They know what responsible is. And I hate that. I just hear so much negative all the time. It bothers me.
Okay, well,
you know, you're someone saying, well, we move so slowly forward. Well, here's why we move so slowly forward. It's us. We're making ourselves move slowly forward. Another comment I heard that really bothered me, I can't think of it right now. But it's just, we have to have open minds too. Are they not going to make good decisions for us intentionally? If I don't like what my waste hauler is doing, I'm not going to call my waste hauler, whether the town, I'm paying taxes for it. I'm not going to call them personally and let them know I don't like what they're doing and can we do something different? And then if they're not working with it, get on the town's case. I mean, the same things that we're already doing, we could keep doing. We're not saying, pardon? You can complain to the hauler and then you can let the town know you're concerned, and the town hears from so many of us that we're concerned, they'll communicate with a hauler.
Okay. Oh, okay. We can. So I had a group of 3rd graders in here today. From West Irondequoit, and I'm not comparing you to 3rd graders, by the way. I got a point, and I explained to them that I was talking about democracy, and I explained that diversity of opinion is one of the hallmarks of democracy. So, and then I realized they probably didn't know what diversity meant. So I was compounding the problem, but. Thank you. I'm just explaining that we can have differences of opinions. That's all the point I was making, that we can agree, we can disagree. We respect each other's opinions. We're here to listen, and we listen to all opinions. So I thank you, and I just want us to be tolerant of each other.
And ultimately, I'd like to make one point with regard to termination clauses within contracts. The town, within this bid specification, if any district chooses to move forward, would have the opportunity and the option to terminate with cause at any moment. So it wouldn't be 1 year. It would be at the end of the year if we wanted to rebid. To the gentleman's point earlier, it was within that context. But ultimately, if a waste hauler was deficient within the responsibilities pursuant to the bid, we would have just cause to terminate that contract. So just for everyone's edification on that. We would either rebid it, get another hauler to pick it up. So if there is a situation where a waste hauler goes out of business, for instance, we would immediately move forward and procure another waste hauler.
Okay. Is it on? Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm speaking as a resident, but just giving just to add a little perspective to it. When I was on the town board, my very first meeting, January of 2014, Mr. Pelosi came and did a presentation at a board meeting. And it's something that I've talked with residents over the years, going door to door and everything, and he brought up this whole issue. He said, you know, on my street, we have 3 trash haulers. All these trucks going down, wearing the roads out. It's bad for the air quality. We don't have the ability to get good competition because I'm only one person. If I talk to all my neighbors, you know, I can get a few neighbors to pitch in and maybe we can get our price down. Why doesn't the town take this on? Now people, you know, who moved maybe to Irondequoit from the city say, you know, it used to be in our taxes and it was good and we liked it and, you know, now I've got to deal with it myself. But you know, it's been a long time, since January of 14, and the town is just giving us the opportunity for anybody who wants to do it. They're not ramming this down anybody's throat. I mean, that's what I came to find out about, and that's why I read every word of it too, because I've talked with a lot of people about it, and I wouldn't want it rammed down my throat. But if there is someone who wants to reach out to their neighbors and get a better price by bringing more, I know that just with my neighbors, just 3 of us called the same hauler and got a better price. So, I mean, imagine if we took on more. And there are people who want to do that. So, you know, I just want everyone to not feel pressured about it, and it's not going to necessarily happen. And if you have a problem with it, really work with your neighbors who are trying to push it and tell them that you don't want it. And then if they still keep on going, talk to other neighbors and tell them that why you don't want it, and maybe they won't want it either. But the town's not trying to force it on anyone, but I think it's great that the town's willing to give the opportunity. So I thank you for that.
Who is next for you? Who has the mic?
I do, yeah. Thank you very much for holding this. Understanding that this is basically voluntary, I can see that there is benefits for both sides of this. My question actually goes to billing. Not only do we own our home, we also own the building lot right next to the house. How would that be charged, or would I be billed twice?
Does it have a
Yeah, it has its own property number, and it has its own tax code.
Does it have a structure on it?
No.
It doesn't. That's a no?
It'd be 0 units on the tax bill for that property. So unless there's a home or 2 homes on that property, you won't be charged a unit for the property.
Well, tell the Laurelton Fire Department that for me, will you?
Well, if grass fire, I don't know.
Yeah. Who is the mic? Hello, Mr. Devlin.
Hi, Dave. How are you? A couple of questions. Start with you pointed out examples of Brighton and Pittsford, and those are recent additions to this process, correct?
Brighton, no. Brighton's had this for a few decades now. Pittsford last year, yes, but Brighton's had.
So Brighton has maintained a cost of around $257 a year per resident for a long time or less.
I don't, you know, Greg. I looked at their price this year. I would have to find out if there's what the variation has been.
Along with that, I'd like to point out what Lori was saying, that the city's had this for years as well. I'd like to know, what do the city residents pay for as part of their taxes for refuse?
So city
and how much of a piece of that does the city pay or charge, I should say? Like you're talking 5% for the residents to manage that.
So the city, correct me if I'm wrong, city does their own. They do that internally. They don't contract. And look, the 5%, and I'll just make a point. 5%, and I kind of did the math. This isn't meant to be a cash grab. I made the point, as being transparent, up to 5%. 5% of 500 households that's not a cash grab for the town. If we don't need to do the 5% or any administrative fee, we won't. It's not like this is going to be a windfall for the town. I was just being transparent. That's a reason why opponents of it might cite not to do it, because the municipality has the opportunity to do that. If the town board doesn't want to do the 5%, don't want to do the 5%.
Okay, well, that wasn't an accusation. I was just.
No, I understand. But I've heard it from other people. I know people are suspicious. We're trying to.
And the other point I want to make is that one of the things I fear is that this process will pit neighbor against neighbor. Irondequoit is somewhat unique in the fact that we have a higher senior citizen population, people that do not need waste haulage that, say, people in Brighton or people in Webster or things like that need. And I know I don't generate much, hardly anything at all. Like the gentleman in blue over there said the same thing. There are other families that would love this because maybe their price will go down because they pay for a lot. And I think it's a dangerous process. I'm not saying you can't do it or shouldn't do it, but the other question I have along with that is to ask, what is the smallest your refuse district can be, and what is the largest your refuse district can be?
I think so. I put those kind of hypothetical guidelines based on being pragmatic. I don't think there's any limit. You could have technically a refuse district of two. The smallest one in Pittsford, I believe, is 1 cul-de-sac, and I think it's 22 homes. The largest they have is 250. I don't think there's any. I don't know if you can have one. That would be interesting, but so I don't think there is any legal requirement, Greg.
Well, that's correct, but there's a steam valve on it. You know, if a homeowner came with a petition with 2 signatures on it to the town board when it's deciding whether to approve establishment of the district, would say it's not in the best interest of the town because it's too small. So there's no hardwired limit in the statute, but the town board would act as a steam valve on that. And the other thing I would say is this statutory procedure has been in existence for decades. It's not anything new. Somebody could go around and start collecting petitions. They could have done it a week ago. So it's not like this is a new statute. It's just a new initiative that the town is promoting.
Who has the mic? Oh, there he is. Hello, sir.
Good evening. My name is Val Ruoff, and I'm the Senior District Manager for Waste Management in the market. So a lot of you are our customers, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for the work. No? Yeah, I have a soft voice, so I'll have to hold it closer. I also graduated from Eastridge High School in 1978. So I grew up in Irondequoit, Brower Road, Sandor Circle, Titus Avenue. So I'm very, very familiar with Irondequoit. And since I graduated from high school in 1978, that means I've spent over a half century here. Again, I would like to thank you for the work. My guys work very hard. They're out this time of year and in the heat, and this is not easy work. Thank you. There's a long history of this topic in this town. This isn't the first time, and thank you for mentioning that this has come up. And I would hate to think that you feel that you need to do something different because of this recent consolidation of companies. Please don't be afraid of that. It's happened twice before, and what typically happens is that the level of competition is pretty stern. I've heard you talk about it. There's nothing left at the end of the week on these streets. And it's been like that for 100 years. 100 years, family businesses have been servicing this town. So it's a real distinct advantage that you have, not just in Irondequoit, but in the general Monroe County area. You asked about the city. The city residents pay $391 a year for one toter and $787 for two. And their service is half of what you get because their recycling service is every other week. Now, there's really 3 layers of competition out there. So I work for Waste Management. I have since 1992, but my dad and my uncles and my grandfather and great-grandfather have been working these streets since 1923. So, you know, we may not want to talk about a lot of history here tonight, but I'm just assuring you, a lot of people have put a lot of their lives into making this service standard be very high. And so when you talk about the home that has that many bags of leaves, there are homes with 60 bags of leaves every week. And so in 1998, when one of the other companies that kind of bought into the market, like you're just experiencing, CID, when they left and I took over their work, Tim Oakes was the highway DPW guy, and he immediately told me that I can't mix the leaves in with the garbage in the fall. That by code, I have to pick them up separate and I have to compost them. And we have done that for the last 20 years here. We have a local company, after we get them off the curb, and they have to be off the curb quick or they start killing the lawns. After we get them off the curb each week on your regularly scheduled day, a local company cuts the bags open, and then we take them out and put them into compost windrows, and we make compost with those leaves. So I just want to assure you that we're very progressive with recycling in this town. Very. More so, I think it's the only town in the county that has that program. You can fact check me, but I'm pretty sure because I know a lot about this county.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay? I know a lot about this county. And I know a lot about Irondequoit. I won't go on a lot longer. I'm very glad that one of the private haulers showed up here, because when I said there was 3 different layers of competition here, what really keeps me honest and the new market entry, what's going to keep them honest are these private haulers. They're family owned. And as you know, what makes a businessman successful? In my opinion, it's at 2 in the morning, his eyes open up and he's worried about his customers and his employees. He's worried about it and he frets. And he might get up in the morning and have to make sure the trucks start, or maybe he has to go out and work the route because he doesn't have enough people. That's what that guy does. I'm telling you, I have to compete with that. What makes him competitive is his customers are very loyal to him, and they don't want to lose him. So one concern that I have, even though I'm big waste management and I should just swat this off my sleeve, is that when you uncouple him from his customer and that relationship and make him now come in and bid for that same work, it's very foreign to him. And he can't survive in that environment. He can't go to the bank, like you mentioned, and borrow against it. He's got to take his sales tax returns and his properly prepared financial statements and sit down with a banker and, please, can I get the next truck that I need? So he can't be in that environment. So I happen to know the family and some of the other families that are here tonight, sitting out here. Over 50 years, they've been making sure that there's competitive balance. And there's no reason to believe that's going to stop. I'm sure that he's picking up stops right now on streets that he services from this latest round of consolidations because the service standard demands it. If it starts getting sloppy, they're calling him. And thank you for that, okay? Because that's really the integrity of the market. Rochester is very different in that way. But that's what makes us different, all right? I'm working for a company for the last 27 years after my dad retired that is national. And we're not going to leave either. We've been here 50 years now. We're very committed to Rochester. But I am so impressed and humbled by the work that these family-owned companies do, because typically they're small. They're not very big, but they work really hard. So I would ask you to be sensitive to them in this conversation, because it's not about my company. It's about them, whether or not they can survive. The last thing that I want to just ask you to consider is that when we are trying to overcome the changes that have happened in the last few years with recycling, what's happened is we had guaranteed demand for this recyclable material internationally, and a lot of it went to China. And then very abruptly, they said, we're not taking this anymore because there's a lot of contamination with the United States recycling. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. So many of you probably use these on a gas grill. They look kind of innocent, but when they get in our trucks, they explode. And when they get to the Monroe County Recycling Center, where it's hand sorting of recycling, they explode. So that's one of the reasons why the company that I work for is still hand sorting this material at the curb instead of picking it up with automation, because we have to get these out. Okay? The other thing that I brought with me tonight as an example, and this, believe it or not, is a much bigger problem, is lithium batteries. Now, these are a fire igniter, and I am just pleading with you not to put these in your recycling container. I know they might say on there somewhere they can be recycled, not through our collection system and not through the county mechanical and hand sorting system. These two things, I need your help to get them out of the waste stream. okay? Thank you.
Well, this is being taped, so we can edit that. We can turn that into a PS public service announcement. So thank you for that. And thank you for your words. Who has the mic?
I do. I'm our local hauler down in Lima, and
Folks, can we can't hear the speaker. Thank you.
my grandfather started his business about 55 years ago, and I'm just going to reiterate what he said and just what Val said, that, you know, building reputation over years and years with customers, taking care of them, making sure our streets are clean and everything. You know, we probably will never be up in Irondequoit, but this kind of perked my interest, you know, to be here, to just to say something that, you know, yearly bids will put us, family businesses, kind of in an awkward position and getting new trucks and stuff. Like I was actually asked about the Pittsford bid, and I personally passed on it because I knew it would involve buying new trucks, which our family just can't do it. And for the rate that they had, that is very, very low for a family business, to be honest. And like you said, toters range brand new with freight and everything, usually anywhere from $50 to $70. All right, but like you was just saying right there, that's how my grandfather did it. My father, my uncle, my aunt. We wake up in the morning, we go to work, and we take care of our customers. That's the first thing we do, and that's all we think about, you know. And like he was just saying, that some of these other companies that got bought out recently, my company personally took care of these customers that weren't satisfied. So like when you narrow it down to one hauler, you're asking a lot sometimes for some residents. So just be aware. But I just want to put my 2 cents in there from a local family hauler, you know, for you guys.
Thank you, sir. Who has the mic? Oh, hello. I'm ready. Go Bills. Is your mic on, sir? I'm not sure it is. I want people at home to miss this.
Is that now?
There you go.
I'm surprised you couldn't hear me screaming. I immediately started screaming about freedom of choice, the free market, how government is never a good choice when it comes to personal things like this, personal services. So I want you to know right off the bat, I came in here, you know, you had to prove to me. You really had to have your stuff together to prove to me that this was going to be something I wanted. And to your credit, you pointed out all the bad things. So many bad things, in fact, that it just makes my point even, you just made what I thought even more firm than it was when I came in here. There's too many things you're not prepared for. You're not prepared for leaves. You're not prepared to handle people with low garbage amounts. You're not prepared. Now, I'm not going to, that's not your fault. This is the first meeting, so you have time to, you know, I would assume you're going to go back and kind of work this out with everybody. But I am this close to walking up and down my street waving a flag saying no more taxes. That's how frustrated I am. And the reason is because we just got our butts handed to us on the tax thing that happened with this community center. And a lot of us are sore. And now you come along and you want to say, hey, we'll take care of your garbage for you. And it'll be easy, and we'll handle all the paperwork for you, and you'll never have to call the company ever again. Isn't that great? And I'm thinking in the back of my head, no, never. Government never works that way. It always ends up in the long run you pay more. Short term, you guys do great. Down the road, there's always, well, costs have gone up. We don't have any control over it. We don't have any control over that. We don't have any control over this. And we were stuck. We can't get out of it. Now, somebody asked if we want to get rid of it. How do we get rid of it? And one of you replied, well, you got to get a petition, and you got to go to this, you got to do that. That's the lawyer speak. The real answer is we don't get out of it. Once we're in it, we are in it. So I'm against this 1,000%. But I still have an open mind. If you can get your stuff together about leaves and people who are not generating a lot of garbage and come back and offer some kind of solution for that, I will push aside everything I know about government and their terrible history and give you guys a shot, because I know it's coming from a good place. You're not doing this with bad intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So you guys really have to have your ducks in a row before I feel ready to say yes.
Can I just respond to a few things? You know, some of the questions, like the different sizes, etc. We do answer those. Did answer those questions. The answer is we have to have a uniform. It might not have been the answer people wanted and we're upset with, but we do have an answer. We have to charge a uniform rate. Some of the questions regarding leaf pickup, those are questions we don't have an answer to, because all that would be prospectively developed through a bid. I mean, those are things that would be considered as if you go through the procurement process. So the reason I don't have a concrete answer for you, sir, is I haven't listened to what residents might want if they move forward with this. So I didn't come here expecting to be able to answer every question, because part of this is listening to people. And I've done my best to listen to people, and I appreciate your comments.
Exactly, and that's why I'm saying,
Okay.
you know, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt.
I appreciate that.
Hear what you've, you know, I'm glad everybody has brought up all the things that I've been screaming about. You know, there's going to be no choice. You're going to get charged one price, whether you put out one little bag or whether you put out 3, 5 bags. So everybody here has brought those issues up, and I'm happy that they did, because I was starting to feel like I was the only one out there who was saying these things. So I do have a little bit of hope left for my neighbors.
And for the record, you weren't screaming at all. You were actually very civil and calm.
Thank you.
Next. I think it was a cue.
Am I next? Okay. I have a question and a comment. So the question is, and I'll give my comment and then I'll wait for the answer to the question. On the notary, that the resident gets the gets the petition in the mail, and I think I heard then that resident has to get that notarized before they send it back, or somebody goes down the street collecting signatures, that has to be notarized. How does that process happen, and how does the notary know that those signatures are legit? I guess I'll take that answer.
Well, the first question, notary, when a notary notarizes something, that's what they're notarizing, is that the signature is valid. So it could be notarized hypothetically a few ways. If a district is proposed, each resident in that district would be mailed by the town a petition which they could sign. They would have to sign it in the presence of a notary. That could happen either hypothetically by coming to town hall, by a pre-arranged event where their notary would be present, where we would arrange that, or hypothetically, someone who's organizing this could be a notary or be with a notary and go from door to door and get those signatures and have them notarized. But the short answer is you can't just get it, sign it, then bring it to a notary and say.
I didn't think so. Well,
yeah.
A lot of people aren't going to do that. But
I know, that's why this is.
My comment is, and this is, I want to thank you for having this. And this is not related. This is not directed to the town, but to the state law itself. I didn't know that. As somebody made a good point, is that since this is based on the collective assessed value of homes in the district, it truly is that the person that has a more expensive home has extra votes. I mean, and you could compare it to if we had town elections or any kind of elections or referendums or anything, that your vote counted more the more money you had. You know, you can afford a bigger house, you get a weighted vote. It seems, and it doesn't seem just unfair, it seems not undemocratic. It seems, to go against, it doesn't seem like what we learned in school. And I'm also a teacher, I teach social studies, substitute. But it just seems to go against everything, that we learn about, one person, one vote. It just seems wrong.
And I don't necessarily disagree with you. And I would probably have to research the reason for that and why it is based on assessed value. I will say this, if you're looking at our neighborhoods and you're looking at probably if people want to propose a district that's within a reasonable size, you're going to see probably a few streets. I live in Laurelton on Harwick Road. There's not much delta between the assessed value. So I think that's one, at least Irondequoit, there's 14,000 Sean's homes, right? They're probably all assessed similarly, but hopefully in Irondequoit you wouldn't see that where one property would steer it too much.
Well, I mean, I moved here 28 years ago from Manhattan, and I grew up in a very wealthy town in New Jersey, but a small city, but also had its blue-collar working class section, and and then the disparity of incomes and homes. I was in Montclair, New Jersey yesterday. There's homes that make the mansions in my town look like shacks. I mean, that just doesn't seem right. And like you said, you grew up next to the Gold Coast. I mean, there's
next to the Gold Coast.
Yeah, next. That's what I mean. I know what you're talking about, because there's there's homes left over from the seaside resort days next to mansions, and I mean, it should be per homeowner, per person. The whole idea that somebody who has more money to buy a bigger house gets more of a vote, more votes or a bigger vote. It's just wrong, in my opinion.
Thank you.
And that's directed to the state, not to you.
Understand.
Right, but
we're using a state law, so it's.
That's it.
Ms. Rousseau?
First of all, can I just say thank you not only to the town for letting us know that there are options and opportunities that are floating around, but thank you to everyone here for expressing their opinions and their insights that I very well may not have thought of. So I appreciate that opportunity. But I have one quick question, which is, has the town seen petitions coming at you yet? Or is it still completely hypothetical?
No, well, first of all, the town could be engaged by this at any time. I would just say this. I've been supervisor almost 4 years now. I got to the point where I had enough people who had mentioned this to me, and I just felt it almost was like, when are you gonna form refuge districts? And I said, well, we don't form refuge districts, and I think you need, in order, if there's interest like that, I think this is such a nuanced process. It needed to be us kind of educating people if they wanted to have that decision. So no, we have not seen any petitions. We have not formed any petitions. That would likely come after this meeting if people were interested in doing this in their neighborhood.
So this is purely informative, and people have options, opportunities, and it's really the ball is in the court of the constituency in Irondequoit to say whether or not each individual area would want to be a part of this.
Yes.
So nothing's a done deal.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Who's next? Raise
Yes,
the mic.
I'm next.
I can't see you, but it's you again.
It's me again.
Ask one question and let me answer it. Okay, so. And then you can ask another one.
Well, I just have an observation because I think it was answered, but I want to mention it. I talked about the resident-owned community in Florida, and they had Flagler Beach crash, and they got a lower bid from Palm Coast. They went with Palm Coast. It was a year thing, but they put in a parachute, which I thought was good, 90-day right of refusal. So within the first 2 weeks, we hated Palm Coast. And we notified them that after 90 days, we had to go through the 90 days, but it wasn't a full year. We weren't locked in. And in the process, Flagler Beach wanted us back, and they matched Palm Coast's price. So after 90 days of hell, because they screwed up everything, we were back. So if you do go with the districts, you should have a parachute that if you don't like them, you're not stuck with a full year.
Thank you, sir.
Who's got the mic? We can't possibly be done.
Thank you for having this meeting. Very informative. Again, it's citizens asked for this information. They had these ideas. Social media people talked about these things. Me myself, I live on the List Avenue Expressway, and to have fewer heavy trucks coming through and clipping my yard, not in one spot but in 2 spots every week, and just destroying it, is great. To have just 2 trucks roll through the neighborhood once a week is great. I can appreciate the local haulers and what they do. But again, it's, if we can reduce heavy truck traffic on side streets, fewer, particulate emissions from diesels, fewer NOx from diesels, those types of things. That's all great for the environment. So, if we can do it with 2 hauler or 2 trucks instead of 6 or 8 trucks, I think it's a great thing. I think it's a good opportunity. Again, people ask for this kind of stuff. They want this information. And, it's really up to the people in this room. If you don't like it, then rally for your neighbors that you don't like it and you don't think it's good. If you do like it, rally with your neighbors and try to get it going. Thank you.
If you have the microphone, just talk. There you are.
So I don't know about anybody else in here, but I signed a 1-year contract when I got my waste hauler. They gave me a nice discount because of it. But like many people, I didn't move in January 1st, so my contract runs July to July. Is there any mechanism in which we can either do like, if a group or a district is formed, is there any way to progressively work into it so that I could finish out my contract? I will admit I'm a little ignorant on this. I did not look at my contract to see what the termination clause is. I know I looked, I think, at CERAC, and theirs is $125 if you enter a long contract and back out of it, if I read it correctly. Is there any mechanism for that, just in case, it comes up mid-year?
Yeah. So, I want to get I actually want to get a correct answer because I don't want to speak with 95% of certainty. So can I, Maria, would you mind giving him a card and we'll make sure we get back to him or just get in touch? I know there's a way to prorate, so you're not going to be penalized if you well, I shouldn't say that because I'm not 100% sure, but let us research that and get back to you.
Right, thank you.
This is me after 4 years finally realizing not to speak with 95% certainty on something, so. Especially when it's being televised. Nate, have you run out of tape yet? Is anyone next? Oh, go ahead. Oh, no mic. Can you hand him the mic, please? I can hear you, Richard, but we want to make sure everyone at home can.
I spent many years as Director of Purchasing in New York State, local public benefit corporation, and also with other governmental agencies. The question, one question I don't think was clarified quite enough, and that is the question of low bidder is easy. The question of responsive is an easy one. Do they respond to the specifications? The difficult one is responsible. And there's case law on that, kind of giving you a category of decisions. One is financial ability, for example. Did the corporation, waste hauler, go bankrupt? Has he got judgments against him? He's not financially responsible. You can reject that bid. Also, on an idea of the history of that waste hauler. Do they have no history at all? They had no experience in waste hauling. That's an issue. Now, some of this is subjective judgments, and of course, courts, deal with subjective judgments decided by a local government, whether it's a school district, a town board, or New York State Public Benefit Corporation. Personal service contracts. These are contracts, for example, for an architect, attorney firms, and they are not bid. And they're not bid for a very good reason, because it's a personal service, it's a professional service, it requires credentials. Now, waste hauling, I dealt with waste hauling, but it was commercial. And doing commercial waste hauling bids are relatively easy. Consumer ones, when you're dealing with consumers and homeowners, is a whole different ballgame. Legally, this is not a personal service under the law. It can be bid, and it's required to be bid in certain cases. However, as a subjective decision, consider it a personal service. I think there's a lot of unknowns here that it's hard to put into a bid on whether this contractor is going to do a good job. My opinion is I've been in this town over 50 years. I've been through at least 2 or 3 waste haulers. Waste management has been the one I've had for the last 15 years. I've owned 3 different properties in the town and used them for each of those properties. I think that it should be up to the individual homeowners to decide who their waste hauler is. I don't think it's conducive to bidding. It can work, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a crapshoot. What is the history in New York State of this? You know, looking at only one town, Pittsford or Brighton, doesn't really give you the whole story. It gives you a clue, perhaps. And I'm not saying don't look at it, and I'm not saying each particular number of streets in the town shouldn't look into it. But from my point of view, this is a personal service, and I would not like to see 50% plus one person or $10,000 deciding. And now, as the previous person spoke, you're pitting neighbor against neighbor, and one neighbor not liking what he's getting, and it was your fault, Joe, or Sam, or Mary, or whoever. So having experience in bidding, I think this is difficult. It's a matter of opinion. If you weigh personal service and your freedom of choice more than the ability to save, say, 25 hours a year, that's an issue. The issue of the environment, I think, is very subjective. I have not seen my street deteriorate because of waste management coming down in the last 15 years. I've lived on the east side of town for 40 years, and the last 15 years on the west side of town. So there's a lot of opinions here. What do you weigh more? I don't like the town getting involved with bidding, and then you're going to have a hodgepodge in the whole town. If you were to consider the whole town, you might have an economic reason, a good one, to save money, because you'd have one waste hauler for the whole town. But this hodgepodge of some districts with 10 streets, 5 streets, 25 streets, to me it's a hodgepodge. It's not economically valuable to the town as a total. But I'm saying, look into it, but keep in mind, it's a matter of what you weigh more and what I call value judgments. What do you value? Do you really value saving $25 or even $50 and make all these major changes? I don't think that's cost effective to look at that small amount of money in savings. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Ma'am? Yep.
I agree with everything he said. And, you know, I do think about the other trash haulers that could potentially go out of business. And their employees will have to look for jobs. I mean, this could really put other companies out of business. And I wonder if the town has really thought about raising the taxes. I mean, there's people on fixed incomes that, you know, struggle to pay their taxes and divide their money in such a way they'll make those 2 tax bills. And this is raising the taxes by putting this fee on here. I mean, some people prefer to pay 3 times a year. And in terms of emissions, I think what's worse is cutting down all the trees. I mean, every summer I'm hearing chainsaws and trees going down in Arundequite, and trees are very good for the environment. So that would help.
Well, we don't cut down a tree that isn't dead and doesn't pose a threat to people. We just don't go around cutting down trees. We do that when they're at the end of their lifespan.
Well, there was a lot cut down, this past summer, and I'd
Wish that
much
wasn't the
rather hear
case.
truck hauling than chainsaws waking me up.
And just to note, any notion of raising taxes, I think, and nobody wants to raise is balanced by the hope that you would have less or nothing that you're paying the waste hauler. Again, it's the board looking at, I think.
I do think waste hauling is very personal. We're homeowners, private homeowners, and we should be able to pick what company we want to use and pay 3-4 times a year.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi. I just needed some clarification. I was late. I'm sorry. In order for this to work, I guess my understanding is, can only one district be formed for the town to do this, or you need it? How much do you need for this to work?
So, let me just say, the districts, there's no requirement for the size. I know in Pittsford, for instance, I don't want to keep using Pittsford as an example. I did do research on other towns, by the way. I'm just using Pittsford because they were most recent. Pittsford varies from 25 homes to 250 homes. There's no real legal requirement of how big or small it can be. However, as Andrew said, if we get a petition with 5 homes, it's probably not going to be, the town board's probably not going to approve that, thinking that's in the best interest of the residents. There can be multiple districts of varying sizes.
But you don't have like a small limit or, I mean, a minimum or a maximum.
So at the start, what we said was, given this is kind of a nuanced process and it involves notarizing and et cetera, you probably want to be, if you're thinking about this, you probably want to be realistic and not, I guess, go too big. So, I think you want to be realistic of how many homes you might be able to engage and get to go through this process.
Okay, and thank you for the opportunity, because you're
thank
giving
you
us a choice, and it's up to us. And I'm grateful for that.
You appreciate
So,
it.
thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else? Your mic's not on. State law? State law? It is in the town code. I don't know when it was put in the town code, but it is in the town code. I would imagine, yes. Yes. You've actually now prompted me to go look at the town code, look at the date of its inception, and go back to the minutes.
Is that county? Isn't that a county? When they redid their
Town by town.
but the county has no. I think in the '90s when they redid the recycling law, I believe that was part of the county code.
So I will go research that, because I just know it is in the town code. I don't know when it was adopted. Maria? You don't need a mic. I can hear you.
Can you give an example of the changes that were being done in Pittsburgh? $214?
Yep.
What did they pay prior to that,
So I don't have the. All I know is that they were very, very happy with that bid result. They said they were actually very surprised how low it came.
It's probably cheaper than what they were paying the regular home.
Anecdotally.
Anecdotally, yes, but I wouldn't have the empirical kind of median delta of that.
Did you say you're not sure?
I'm not sure. Yes. So.
I can tell you, I used to live there. That is real cheap. I live here now, but that is extraordinarily cheap. What's cheap? 214? Yes.
Sir, all I will say is, we met with the people in Pittsford, and the town supervisor was very, very, very happy with how the bid came back, and he said the residents were very happy. That's the qualitative kind of answer that I have. Yes.
I'm grateful for this meeting. I'm hoping that there's going to be others,
There will be.
so that others can put their input in. I have one quick question for Mr. Ruoff, and that's about the propane bottles and the lithium batteries. Can they go in the regular trash? How do you get rid of them?
Give him the mic. Yeah. How big's that
Not
bag?
recyclables, but regular trash. They
No,
shouldn't
he just
even go
ran
in
home
that.
and got all of his batteries.
I don't. I have no lithium batteries. No.
Okay, so each of you generate some household hazardous waste. And, by law, the DEC and the EPA say it's de minimis to what you put out there. So by that I mean, you might throw a battery in with your garbage, right? And they just say, well, that can go to the landfill. Okay? So 2 things. First of all, it is a fire hazard. So I've had Mr. Riley come to one of my, or Mr. Kiley come to one of my truck fires, and it was for this lithium battery issue. It's amazing how fast it got going because they do ignite. So I'm asking everyone to please not casually put them out in their garbage, just like you wouldn't put hot ashes or any other pool chemicals or anything like that, because we've learned the hard way over the years. These are $300,000 trucks. We can't lose them because of that, okay? So now, so now what's happened is, you know, the DEC and the EPA have gotten involved and kind of sliced these things off. So a few years back, they didn't want us to take your e-waste anymore, right? So we partnered with the county out by the airport and set up a facility where you can make an appointment and go drop all of that off really at no charge. And this would include your liquids, you know, paints, oils. You probably all have them in your basement or garages, right? And you do need to be able to get rid of them. But you don't want to let them go in the landfill, really, okay? If we're going to be responsible stewards, you know, we have to find the best way to disposition these. And the description I keep giving about the fires, not just in the truck bodies, but at the recycling center is very real. So I would appreciate you using that outlet if it's available to you. Yep. And if you need more questions answered about those kind of things, please call us and get some good guidance. And if we're not your hauler, you can still call us. We partner with the county on these programs because there's a need, right? This need is not going away. The more technology you get in your home, the more this is going to be a problem. Fair enough? Yes. All right, you're welcome.
I just want to piggyback on that and let everybody know that the Eco Park facility is a free facility through the County of Monroe, available to all residents. You can go online, monroecounty.gov. You can make an appointment. You just tell them what you're bringing in. It'll give you a whole list of things that you can bring in. And also, I want to thank my colleague at the table, Mr. Kiley. Commissioner Kiley has worked with our county to have drop-offs right here in Arundecoit at our highway garage. So we do make it very available to you. So certainly feel free to call the town as well if you have questions.
I believe October of this year is when we're going to have that.
Yep.
No, in town. So you can go to the Eco Park, which is
We only do it every so often.
correct. Every other year, we host one here for the Household Hazardous Waste Mobile Unit. And so this year we will be hosting that at the new highway facility in October. So you'll see some of that information being pushed out later this summer.
Any?
Can I add one more thing on that?
Sure.
My wife finally gave up on this big TV we had behind our couch for
Microphone?
years. All right, get rid of it.
Microphone?
I'll be honest with you. Even though I grew up on the garbage trucks, I really struggled to get that to my car. It was heavy, right? Those old style TVs. And I can see people in this room that might struggle to do that, right? So if you're a customer of ours and you need us to come to your house and get that, we offer that service. Okay, so in addition to what the town's describing, we will come help you with that. Okay? And nobody should get hurt. And that's why I started out talking about how hard this work is. There's a lot of things that people put out that they think are not heavy, but they are heavy. And it's really one of the reasons why this service has become more expensive over time is not just the cost of where we have to take it to, but the exposure to workman's comp, the jingles that are on TV constantly leading people to believe that we're a target for lawsuits. We have to overcome that. And I really thank you for giving me a little bit of time to talk here tonight, because I want to work with you. In the past, I've come in and worked on like the days of the week that we work on streets to limit down to 2 days. And I don't know with this consolidation if they've stayed with that, but we should sit down and look at that.
Yeah, I think we're actually meeting with Jeff Richardson next week.
Okay.
So might be serendipity.
So those are the kind of things that we should be working on, making sure that the leaves are being recycled and collected separately, making sure that these kind of things are not causing hazards, because this is an important service. Yeah, and it needs to be done every week like clockwork. It can't be like I understand they're voting tonight in Toronto, the city of Toronto, whether or not they're going to go on strike. Well, have you ever heard of a strike in any of these towns, on any of these streets, or in the city of Rochester in the last 100 years. And I would say to you, there's a very good reason for that. It's because that man's family, and that man's family, and that man's family, and that man's family would never let that happen. They would show up the next day and pick up that garbage. And so there's a lot of protections built in here, but you need to recognize that they are fragile. And they're not like the company that I work for in that way. They need to be looked at beyond kind of the surface of what we're talking about. Okay, thank you.
I think that does it. We'll be here after to answer any more questions or to talk or anything you want. And again, we'll set up points of contact for us, but I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Thank you for staying. If you were here watching at home, we appreciate that as well. You know where to find us, supervisor@irondequoit.org. That's how to get a hold of us. But we'll continue the process and the conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this special event coverage on ICAT Government Access.